everybody. Welcome to another Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. And we have, I feel like I always say we have a special one, but we do have a special video today because we're welcoming a guest that we haven't had on the channel, and is from a region we have not gone through yet. I mean, it's still Canada, depending on who you ask, I guess. But we have someone from Quebec here. We got Maxime Villeneuve in the middle here, who
Villeneuve, right?
played Villeneuve. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna
Villeneuve.
I'm
was
gonna
good enough.
say it. I'm gonna say it's in the non-Quebec way, and everyone else can take that how they would like. But um, Maxime piloted Katsu to a pretty good. I mean, he made the finals of the Canadian National Championships. We had him on a couple, I think, 2 games at least on stream.
On the cast, yeah.
I think probably 3. I think now I'm thinking about it. So we will have a link to the cast in case anybody wants to actually see this deck in action. But of course, I'm joined by my co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot, Rob on the bottom there, doing a lot of the co-commentating and co-casting this past weekend here.
Yeah,
But
it's
we
a
brought
fun weekend.
Maxime to talk about this Katsu deck because I think Katsu is in a super interesting position that Lexi is probably going to LL soon. And I think that works out very well for Katsu because that's one of Katsu's more volatile matchups. Whereas the random burst can kind of snipe you down for any second. It's a little bit more toolbox than they would like. So we brought back Maxime to talk about what may be a strong deck now, but maybe even a stronger deck in the future, depending on how it kind of works out. So we're going to kind of start off as we do with the equipment here. So Maxime, can you walk us through a bit of the equipment loadout, like which equipment you run in most of the matchups, which one you bring for like specific matchups, for the main and side?
Yeah, for sure. So as you see on the top row, it's basically the standard match, the standard loadout. You will have in most, if not almost all matchups. So you have the usual breaking skills, the breeze rider boosts. Oftentimes it used to be a Snapdragon skaters, which has fallen out of favor a little, mainly because of one of the newer cards in Bonds of Ancestry, because of the bigger chain, bigger combo stuff you can do with it. So that's the only like piece I have, I think, in for the AB. Ducata Cheese, of course, Heart and Cross Trap, and Mask of Momentum.
Yeah.
So it's pretty standard loadout.
Perfect.
So
And that's what you run in most matchups, correct? That's kind of like the bread and butter.
yeah, exactly. Any matchup that doesn't require anything specific or I want to be aggro, this is the start loadout that I will have. Art and Cross Trap basically just saves you a card. Sometimes you can block with one card and still go Surging, Whelming, and other
Right.
stuff off of 2 cards in an arsenal sometimes. So you can do some pretty good stuff with Heart and Cross Trap.
Awesome. I have the sideboard here now, so I see some picks in here. Maybe we can talk about when these come in. We have the lantern, right? So instead of one Kodachi, you run the lantern.
Yep, exactly. And it's for the wizard, only the wizards,
Okay.
both Kano and Icelander. And the reason being, I also bring in Mask of Ponce and Links in these matchups. So having Mask of Ponce and Links, mostly not having Mask of Momentum makes 2 Kodachis a little bit
True. Less powerful than they would be normally, right?
Yeah, exactly, because they are terrible rate, being 1-for-1.
Makes sense.
So don't want to reach Chainlink 3 as often, unless you are, especially against Icelander, since if you lead with a Kodachi, she can just disrupt you with either Frostbite, a discard effect, or anything. So Kodachi you could almost run no Kodachi at all against Icelanders. You
Right.
swing it so rarely.
There's two lanterns.
Yeah, if we could, I think I might, because I almost considered going AB1 only, because I really wanted to keep the Breeze Ready Boots even against Icelander, because when you have like the green light, like if you do something and she has no disruption, or you can see that she has a red maybe in Arsenal, or she doesn't use it on the first action you make, that's probably where you want to use the Mask of Ponce and Links and go as wide as you can, maybe hit the Dishonor line, or just doing as much damage as you can.
Absolutely. What about the Tunic? When does this come in, as opposed to the hard cross trap?
So it would be in 2 grindier, slower matchups. And also it kind of acts as a iron rod
Right.
test at some points because you want it against Bravo as well, mainly for the one defense because the crush effects are kind of devastating, and Katsu is not the hero with the biggest fridge in the game.
Right.
That's another benefit of having Breeze Ready Boots though over Snapdragon Skaters is you have one more point of defense in that because it's battle worn, so you can use it hopefully before you break it.
Right.
So yes. So mainly the tunic is for it's Icelander as well because you can pay for a Cornet Peak with it, or you can pay for the Frostbite if you have a turn that has exact resource. You can pay for the one Frostbite with the tunic. But that's another good thing with the new Katsu list running Bounce of Ancestry is the whole line costs only 2 resources. So if you pitch a blue, you can pay through a Frostbite and still do your whole line.
Okay, that's important.
Surging, Gust Wave, Dishonor, and Finisher. Good. So I'd say Bravo, Icelander. Usury, I'm not sure still. It's a tricky matchup. There are many variants of Usury as well. There are Contract, Redline, and Hybrids. So it's a toss-up. Like
tricky to get a read on that one.
Yeah, exactly. In the blind, I'd probably run the tunic because again it gives you one more defense or a leave no witness or something like a 3-block and a piece of equipment can do that 3 times.
Yeah.
Still unsure of the matchup against Usury.
I think a lot of people are unsure on what to do against Usury.
Yeah.
So hard. Yeah.
She's tricky to play against.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so that concludes the equipment part. Let's look at the main board. I see there are 49 cards in the main board here. Are there any cards in here that you would consider kind of maybe different from most lists out there, or any logic behind some of the picks, in this part of the build?
Maybe one more point about the equipments. Sure. The tide flippers that was at the bottom.
Oh yes.
It's again only for the wizards. Some people might bring it against Viscera, but I prefer to go AB0 into him.
Okay, because you're not going to be pitching much anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not. The intention is not to pitch anything to Arcane Bearer, even though if it could come up at the end of the game when it gets a little bit grindier, most often than not, I would prefer blocking the physical damage, if anything. Because like if you throw a trail with a red mauve, that's what you want to block.
Right.
Not the 3 rune chants that come afterwards.
There are no on hit on the rune chants, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So usually I would run AB0 into Viscera. So Tide Flippers again is only for.
It's only Icelander. Okay, no, that makes sense. Awesome. All right.
You have the AB2 because in Canada we have maybe more Kano players than
we
other
do.
regions.
Then we should.
Yeah. There's at least Guy and Mike, the big Kano.
When they're
players.
there, you can expect a Kano.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, let's move on to the core of the deck. So maybe you can walk us through this.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the main I ended up with a week before Nationals. I tested about the same list for a month leading to Nationals. But at the time, I was running basically... there's a guy on Discord whose username is Krama79, who I've been talking a lot to about Katsu mainly. And he actually won his Nationals. The only Katsu to win Nationals this season with Katsu.
You were so close of being the second.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
If only I could have had the Aldramai.
Right.
Would have
dream.
Been better.
Right.
But yeah, he won Nationals with his list, and his list is pretty clean, pretty good as well. And it's slightly different than this version. And I was testing it 3 weeks going to Nationals, and then on the last week, for a very specific reason, I changed. Well, for 2 reasons mainly. I changed it for what you see there, and what I would consider maybe something that people don't usually run or don't always run would pretty much only be the Soulbeat Strikes. In the main deck at least, because other than that, the rest is pretty, I don't like to say self-explanatory, but it's
right.
cut and dry.
Standard. Yeah.
Yeah. like the ancestral, it's obvious. Be Like Water just serves as extra copies of Surging Strike because the blue one is very bad.
Right.
You don't want to run the blue Surgings.
Right.
And Be Like Water basically reads luck. Like you grab a card from your opponents more often than not, because people usually don't want this to hit.
Right. Right. They're
Because
always
it just
like
opens up your old hand.
they're wondering like if this doesn't hit, do I break the entire combo chain? Right. Like is he
Yeah,
relying
exactly.
on this to hit? Yeah.
And then I have some numbers of Bonds of Ancestry, of course. Even though it's probably the best card of the deck, at least the card that made me want to play Katsu when it got spoiled. I'm not running more than 5 because at the same time I don't want to see it too early in the game. Because
Right.
it needs targets to be very, very good. It's still decent as 0 for 4. I've played it as a 0 for 4 without any targets in the graveyard. But usually you don't want to do it. It's way better as a 0 for 8.
Absolutely.
Then the Descendants. Again, I have one more in the sideboard, but main board I want 4. The yellow one might be questionable. A 1 for 2. It's not good rates. But it's a starter, which is very rare in Katsu to have a usually the second piece of the combo. Yeah, being as well a starter, so I guess it can't have it all. So it has to block 2 and lower power when it is a starter.
Yep.
The Fluster Fist, you need all 3 reds, all 3 blues. You want to see the blue very early to block with it, have the perfect target for bonds, and then grab the reds. I have this tendency to draw my reds before my blues, but that's probably a me issue. 100 Winds are just sort of a glue in the deck that it's just does a good job. It's a good target for bonds as well. Less power than the Fluster Fist would be, but it has go again if you have stuff to keep going in your hand. Sometimes when you can double bonds in a turn, 100 Winds could be the first target to choose, and you follow up with another Descendant bonds into Fluster Fist. So the innate go again is pretty good, and it adds some sort of recursion as well with its follow up, the Winds of Eternity. If you can lend this, just shuffle back the 100 Winds and have more threats without having more cards in your deck. But yeah, the Soulbeat Strikes. It's a card that could change in the future. It's just the next best 0 for 4. I think that Katsu has. It blocks for 3, which is basically Fluster Fist without the combo keyword.
Right. Yeah, it's annoying to deal with too. 0 for 4.
Yeah, exactly. If you present this on Chainlink 3 with a card in hand already, you're putting your opponent in a rough spot because if he lets it hit, you get the mask trigger. It gets go again, and you might be able to follow that up with something else.
Yeah.
And if the opponent decides to block it, either gives you equipments or 2 cards from hand because it's a 4 breakpoint.
Right, and they've likely taken damage already maybe before this comes in, so it's like now they're wasting their turn. Yeah.
Exactly, and since you still had a card in hand that you might be fine arsenaling, it's not you don't lose any value in running it. Just don't have to start your turn with it expecting it to hit because
they'll likely block you.
Just throwing the game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good advice.
So that's one card that could maybe change at some point if we get more or better combo pieces or another line that's worth playing. The Surging, and you want 6, you want to see it as often as you can, as soon as you can. You can see what happens when you don't see it sometimes in the finals game of the Nationals. I haven't seen a single Surging until turn 7.
Oh, yeah.
But since now we have Descendant Gust Wave as well, it's not as bad as it used to be to not see any Surgings in the first few turns because, attention, you can start the combo with the Descendant. But you still have to see it as well, which I didn't.
Didn't see either. Starting pieces.
You need to see some cards for this deck to work. Okay, we've got the main idea there.
You're right.
Yes. Not to remove any credits from opponent's win. He played very well, and he played a very good deck as well. And
sometimes it happens.
It happens sometimes against Lexi. Like she has good cards, she will draw out good cards and
Absolutely.
normal. You also need the 6 Whelmings. I have again one more in the sideboard, but the 3 red, 3 blues are in the main deck because they are just one of the better follow-up early game when you're piling up stuff in your graveyard. You might not want to go with a full bounce line turn 2. So whelming, well, bounce can also follow the gust wave, the whelming gust wave, but the threat of drawing a card is with go again especially is very very good. So
Yeah.
people will often overblock this card.
It's very annoying. Yeah.
The Mugenshi is the thing that changed in the week prior to Nationals. I have one main, one side, which came with Lord of Winds, which I didn't have before. Well, Mugenshi didn't do a whole lot in the tournament. It was there for a reason. The reason never came up. Which I don't know if you want to go over that right now or maybe later.
Yeah, we can talk about it after if you want to give us more of an analysis on what went well, what didn't go too well. Yeah, we can talk about that a bit later. Yeah.
Sure. So after that we have the blues. The remaining blues, Dishonor, are just the best follow-up to a Dishonor if you have the Descendant Gust Wave against certain heroes. Against others, it just do nothing or close to. But against let's say Lexi that cannot flip her cards anymore, it's harder for her to double arsenal.
That's quite good.
In the mirror, it's excellent. Against Viscerai, doesn't trigger anymore. So
right. Yeah.
And against a non-consumed Levia, it can just end straight up in the game.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
But the funny thing is, she's dishonored and then she flips into consumed or the other one. She's not dishonored anymore, so you have to pull it up again to dishonor her again.
Brand new hero. Yeah. She has a way out.
Exactly. Yep, which she didn't have before, which is kind of cool.
It's true.
So Lord of Wind added back in the deck the week before, but it's
basically
it's been there since Welcome to Wrath. So
nice blue 0 costed 3 block. It does everything.
Exactly. And it has the combo keyword to go with the Breeze Ready Boost.
Too.
You can land the Mugenshi and then follow that up with 3 Lord of Winds. Can be good. A one of Warmonger's Diplomacy.
One of only? You don't want to put 3 of these? Yeah.
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One of them is availability.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
I own only one and couldn't find more for the event.
Understandable.
Which led to some changes in the deck. And finally, 2 Winds of Eternity to go with the 100 Winds, which used to be 3. Needed a cut because I really wanted to keep the Warmonger's Diplomacy.
Right.
Even though it was a singleton, I still wanted to have the access to the effect because it can be game winning against some hero.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for the main deck. So pretty simple. Like I said, the new one maybe better cards in the Soul Beat Strikes.
Right. If you had 3 diplomacies, what would your blues be instead? If you wanted to run 3 diplomacies.
So Krama's list, which I ran for 3 weeks, has 3 diplomacies, and 3 Winds of Eternity, and doesn't run any Mugenshis nor Lord of Winds. The 15 blues would be the same without the Lord of Winds, and you add 2 diplomacies and 1 Winds of Eternity.
Right.
Okay, so that's the 3. That's the extra 3 cards total. Is the 1 Winds, 2 Warmongers instead of the 3 Lord of Winds.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the sideboard because it's interesting to say the least. It's very. I know a lot of people really dislike single card sideboards because it's just like you make room for it and then you add one and then you never see it or something like that, or just like it doesn't make as much of an effect. But you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 single cards along with some other pieces here and there. So I think, are there, I guess the ones that actually I'm kind of interested in all of, other than the Flick Flacks and the CNCs. Those ones I think we could probably leave alone,
right?
Because I think every Katsu deck probably runs literally CNC Flick and Art of War, I guess, to that matter. But let's the double strikes, the yellow of for the other pieces, and the one reinforce, one sink. We could go into those. So let's maybe start with double strike. Why do you have it? Why do you have two of it? And why do you have it at all? And what does it come into?
It started with 3.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of double strike, honestly, but it does a job. It has a role. Like it gets you. It's very good on all of our turns, being a 0 for 4. Because the base rate of double strike is like cut cheese. It's not good rates. It's under rate, having 2 damage in a red card. But it gives you 2 chain links, which can be relevant to mask. And if you start turn with a double strike, it will probably hit, and then unlocks all your hand. Because when you start with this, they don't know what's the follow-up. You still have 3 cards, maybe 4 if it came from Arsenal. So you basically have your whole hand. So you give no information, and they now have to decide: do you want to give cards, equipments, or they let it hit and you grab something?
Right.
Probably one of the worst feeling for an opponent is chaining 1, double strike hits, and you go get a Bounce of Ancestry. Because they know you have probably the 2 first thing, being the Surging and the Gust Wave. So your turn will be probably 6 or 7 chain links wide. So
makes sense.
And it just goes through armor really fast, like the cut cheese can. If people really don't want this to hit, they will probably give equipment, because it's not good for them to give a 2 or 3 block from hand.
Yeah.
It can just chunk through equipments if people really don't want it to hit. So it's mainly against aggro decks and decks that usually don't want to block as well, because you probably get your Katsu trigger channeling wand.
Yeah, getting the Katsu trigger without revealing is probably just like the low key most important thing, when people usually think it's only mask, but it's just like, well, no, because this thing can grab literally everything. Like you could discard whatever you want and grab any part of your line, which is usually Katsu's. Like sometimes you naturally have it, but a lot of the times you don't, right? So being that way is pretty good. Okay, so that's the 2 double strikes.
Yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned, that people often are scared of the mask trigger, but I think the Katsu trigger is even scarier. And people will usually, I see oftentimes people using breaking scales to get a blind mask trigger.
Yeah.
Usually what I prefer to do is use the breaking scales to get a Katsu trigger. They are usually way stronger than the mask draw, because they are not blind. You get whatever you want. So I think it's a better use, usually, of the breaking scale. Sometimes you need to get the mask trigger. You said at the beginning I had 2 or 3 games recorded. I had 3, and in the first one, it was round, and first one of day 2, I think it was a Katsu mirror. I had to use breaking scales to get my mask trigger because I messed up. I had to use it ineffectively just to recoup my mistake.
Right. Hopefully you use it to get both effects.
No, it was only the draw.
It was only for the draw.
Yeah, I miscounted.
That's too bad. And which matchups do you prefer to run this in?
It's many matchups. I think it's almost all of them, except I'm gonna run it against Azalea because I have other stuff to put in.
Right.
Like usually when I bring in my defensive stuff, I will probably not have double strike.
Okay, gotcha. So I guess the sideboard could be kind of split off in like defensive package and offensive package in a way.
Yeah, it can look weird like this way, but most of the singletons are just extra copies of cards that are already in the main board.
Right.
So they add just more consistency.
That makes sense.
And when you look at the 60 in any given matchup, it makes more sense.
Exactly, and I see like since the main board is like 49, you have 11 cards to play with, right? So if you had the 60 cards, you would see, okay, this all looks like it gels together perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you run like 3 CNCs, 3 Out of War, 3 of the yellows attack, you're at 9. So what 2 cards do I add? You can add double strike to make it 11.
That makes sense.
Let's where do you bring your quote unquote defensive? It might not be a defensive package, but the reinforced line and the sink, and I guess if the flick flacks are already added with them, I'm assuming you would add all of them, but I could be wrong. Where are those coming in for?
Yeah, they usually come as a package of 5. So it could be 3 flicks, 2 reinforce, could be 2 sinks, could be 2 flick flag, any 5, any combination of 5 could work. Basically, I have a
Mhm.
split of reinforce and sink because I'm not the biggest fan of reinforced line. But it might be result oriented because I usually draw it late game against, like, say, a Bravo who only swings a hammer for 4. I still have to give him 2 cards to block if I want to use the reinforce. But I still have the 1 because it can be very clutch when you draw off the top and they dominate the spinal.
Yeah.
And just double block from hand and still block for 7 through a dominate. So they basically come in as a package again. But the old 5 comes in against Azalea and Bravo. Other than that, you can have a mix of flicks and sinks in the mirror, or other aggro deck that you might want to stop some unhits.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I may have a couple against Viscerai to stop for attack,
Like
or his
moths and stuff like
that
that.
has a
Yeah.
Mafia in
No.
Skies.
Yeah.
And
That,
I
that
forget,
makes
but
sense.
these don't come in against Lexi, right? At all?
No,
You go
I've
for the
no
race. Okay.
none of them against Lexi. Yep.
Okay.
Because if you out of war and draw a flick flag in a race, it's pretty bad. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's one thing I might reconsider or move around with the numbers. It's the only matchup I think I have both Art of War and Flick Flags is the mirror, and it can be bricky. Sometimes in
Right.
stream match. Actually, I drew a Art of War with a Flick Flag Ancestral and an attack. I played the Art of War and drew a Flick Flag and
Oh.
another Ancestral. No, it was an attack and another Ancestral, I think. It was very weird to have defensive options with Art of War, so I may reconsider that, but it hasn't happened before that, so again, it might
Right.
be result biased.
Variance.
Could be, but
Yeah.
you're right. They don't play well together at all because once you have Art of War, you want to be offensive and you can't banish Flick Flag because it's way too clunky. Yeah.
Exactly, but every time with Katsu, you can always discard it to Katsu.
That's a
Yeah.
very good point. Yeah.
It is a zero cost, so like, it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
useless.
It's not still not good value to discard a Flick Flag like
Right.
Yeah.
Katsu.
Okay.
That's the rule for that you discard.
Art of Wars. You already kind of touched on it. You do have 3. I have seen some lists on 2. You're on the 3. Where do you? First of all, I guess, do you like 3 over 2 for a specific reason? And then where are you bringing Art of Wars in general?
Yep. So there's some sort of debate in the Katsu community I've seen because I've not been playing Katsu for that long. I feel I started playing it mid-April, I think, after Outsiders. And I used to be a chain player for the longest time. So for me, Art of War is one of the best cards in the game, of course.
Chain bias there. I got you.
Yeah. And I think you just have it just fits naturally into Katsu because 95% of the deck is attack action cards.
True.
When you play it this way, like more aggro oriented, and it just if you hit the bounds line, it's at least 4 chain wide. So it's at least 4 power value just on a single Art of War, and it's sort of act like as a pseudo attack reaction, like extra copies of Ancestral Empowerment because you go +1, you draw 2, so it can ensure a hit. Surging, and it just fits the curve perfectly because surging costs 2 and you have a bunch of blues. So you pitch a blue, you have 1 float, they block 5, you go over by 1. This works.
Right.
So I'm bringing Art of War against pretty much everyone. I trim some copies against Bravo, but some people bring all 3 still against Bravo, and they work particularly well with Tunic that you also bring against Bravo.
Yeah.
Again, the no block and the awkwardness of the card paired with the defense reactions made me cut it to 1 or 2 against Bravo. Still unsure.
Yeah.
I cut it against Azalea as well because I want to clean 60, and with the 5 defense piece, there's no room for Art of War, and I just don't want another no block awkward draw with the defense reactions. And other than that, I think I have them against pretty much everyone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. You get such inherently good value off just you pay off Tunic. It's crazy, but assuming you're on cross wrap, you essentially it's 2 for 2 card wise, and then you get +3 to +4, possibly like mass trigger and a whole bunch of stuff. So your value can be like 8 to 12 on like a quote unquote just regular bonds line, like an average single bonds line. It can get pretty insane. So I definitely do get it.
It makes everything else harder to block as well. Like the Descending Gust Wave becomes a 6, Whelming becomes a 5. So everything is just, it's another weird breakpoint for people to block.
Right.
And
you can't just give the 1 armor plus a 3. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And as mentioned at the beginning in the main deck, the Be Like Water, people don't want it to block, but no one will ever overblock it as well.
True.
So they block 3. If you ever land an Art of War on a Be Like Water that's blocked for 3, just pitch a blue, you have already the 1 float to pay for Be Like Water's ability, so just again opens up your whole hand, your whole turn.
Right.
You have still a bunch of zeros, so you will not have any issues having or hitting the Katsu trigger.
It's true.
Rarely happens. Or you just natural draw the Gust Wave because you run
you just
11.
have it.
Yeah, that's the biggest change I think after Outsiders is the consistency in Katsu. I'd never played really Katsu before. I tried a single game when the cat stuff came out, and I got paired against the old dim, and I just said no, I don't ever want to play this hero anymore. But then Outsiders came, Bounce came, and Vembrace came. So Hold'em was a fine matchup afterwards. I had fun in the Hold'em matchup. But what it had really is the consistency in Katsu, because after surging before Outsider, you only had Whelming and nothing else. So people will not block surging; they will block Whelming and move on with their life. Now you have between 11 to 13, 14 maybe natural draw that you can have after the surging. And if they let it hit, then you get the third link, which is bonds, and time than not. Yeah, it's very much more consistent than it used to.
That's true. I guess we'll kind of I'm gonna group them all together, but like the yellows, like the one of yellows, and then the blue bond. I feel like I know the blue bonds, but maybe the yellows specifically, or the one ofs on the bottom row there. Maybe you can speak a little to like, do they all come in a package, or are they in and out depending on the matchup? Things like that.
Yeah, but they are mainly filler cards, depending on matchup. But if you add cards and you're stuck at 59, you can just add the Yellow Underwinds as a 60 card. This one is just more. It just fits in the 60 in any given matchup. Based on the number of cards in the main deck. The Whelming and Gust and the Descendants, they oftentimes come together. If you want to choose one or the other, choose based on the hero I face. If the Descendant and the Dishonor matters, if Dishonor matters, I will bring the Descendant. Otherwise, I would bring the Whelming. The Whelming has the added benefit to block 3, so it's being a 0 cost, so you can still Kadachi with the Whelming.
Yeah.
Any yellow pitches for surging, which is already good on its own.
Right.
But other than that, yeah, just if you add the 3 ofs and you're missing 2 to 3 cards, you can add any number of yellows depending on what you prefer in any given matchup. Except for the Mugenshi. Mugenshi is in its own category, which leads me to why I made the change and why I added Mugenshi and Lord of Wind back. Because it was card accessibility with the Warmonger's Diplomacy. So I was searching for other blues to put. I tried Blue Soul Beat Strike, which wasn't terrible, but it just didn't do anything either. And I started to realize that while testing and playing on Talishar mainly, Drum Eyes were starting to try and fatigue. They were not playing any dragons against me. They were just playing the bigger dragons like the Nikria, if they draw an early Tonaltai, or the Dominias. But the little dragons they were not playing at all, and they were trying to go the fatigue route. And it's probably the only way Katsu can lose against the Dromai is to getting fatigued, because the matchup is just heavily Katsu favored, I think. Maybe not if you ask a Dromai player. They might say it's a 60-40 matchup for them.
Yeah.
But I think any
Biased.
ninja will have the advantage against Dromai, as good as they can be. And the second Mugenshi just makes it so if they ever land a dragon, and just use it as a Mugenshi fodder. Make sure that Mugenshi hits, and you get the Lord of Wind, and then you shuffle back your threats in the deck.
That makes sense. Bit of an anti-fatigue.
Recursion.
Yeah, and we also have many good Dromai players in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Which the top 8 clearly represented with 3 Dromai.
Right.
It's true.
So that's one of the reasons I made the change. So it was not just card availability, but it made me think what I could change to my deck to. Not that I needed really help against Dromai, because it's probably one of Katsu's best matchup.
Right.
But it just gave me
the extra edge.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case. Yeah.
Okay.
So the second Mugenshi, because Mugenshi, people often talk about Mugenshi's recursion against fatigue deck or heavy blocking deck. Against these, I'm probably will never or very rarely get Mugenshi to hit, because the deck is already inclined to block everything you throw.
Right.
And it's pretty telegraphed when you have the Mugenshi, because everything on the line has to hit, compared to bonds. Just happens without anything hitting.
Right.
If you have natural combo, everything has to hit, and blocking 5 or 6 because of breaking skills and the Mugenshi release is not hard for like a Bravo or Uzuri or anything like that. So I still bring it in against them because I oftentimes go over 60 against the Bravo and Uzuri as well. So they are just part of the extra 4 or 5 cards I bring.
Yeah.
I'm not reliant on them to bring back stuff. If it hits,
right.
Good, but I'm not expecting it to hit very often.
Right. They're just padding the deck so you have extra cards for the late game. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
just extra threats.
Awesome.
Okay.
So that covers the sideboard, I guess.
I think
there was blue bounds missing.
We
can talk about that. Yeah.
So it's just an extra blue, and it has base power too. So you can grab it off of Mask of Ponds and Links. It's for matchup. It's only for matchups when you bring in Mask of Ponds and Links.
That makes
get the bounce of Ancestry and try to go double or triple bounds in a single turn.
Oh, triple bounce turn.
Which I actually did against the Fatigue Briar that was in top 8.
Nice.
By the time I played him, everyone knew that he was big number Briar.
Or not
the aggro one.
Chunky Briar.
Yeah,
exactly. Because the main goal is not to fatigue. He just throws 7 at you every turn. And at one point you will die. Or if you deck out, that's because you overblocked.
Absolutely.
I brought the Mask of Ponds and Links, the blue bounds, and a couple extra cards just to have a 64 card deck, I think it was, with extra threat. And I just swung Kodachi as much as I can.
Yep.
Tried to fatigue myself by overusing Katsu and bonds.
Oh yeah, that could
can
happen. Yeah, it can happen.
If you discard a red Flusterfist to grab a combo piece, where you're down 2 threats now, and Briar probably blocked it out anyway.
True. Yeah, very true. Awesome.
Fun deck.
Yeah, you have to have such good knowledge of not only the deck but also your matchups too, to know when to push the gas, when to hold back. It's a very dynamic deck and a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what brought me to Katsu. When I tested it, I said I come from Chain, and when he got LL'd, I was kind of lost. So I tried many things. I tried Belittle Briar at the time. I tried Oldham. I tried Viscerai for the longest time. That's the hero I started the game with. So I went back to Viscerai. Then they decided to make Lexi a nightmare matchup, and they printed Warmonger Diplomacy. So Viscerai was, in my mind, unplayable at Nationals level.
Yeah.
Then they printed a new Shadow Hero, which is nothing like Shane, and not in power level, but just in play style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I often say that Katsu is the closest I have to Shane's play style, just because.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, the sequencing is very important. You have to find your spot, and just goes very wide, very strong, and uses Art of War.
You can play
very
Art of
well.
War. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, I can play Art of War.
That's the only thing that matters.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so we've covered basically the whole deck. At this point, I was wondering if, through the course of your Nationals journey, were there any cards in this deck list that you think overperformed your expectations? You know, in the sense that maybe initially you thought they were like, you know, okay in the deck, but now you're like, sure, you want to include them, you know, going forward in Katsu.
Yeah, I feel like it's so synergistic that everything works with the other cards in the deck. And the only card that could come mine is only because of the debate in the
Right, in
mainly
the
on
Katsu
in
community.
the Katsu community, let's say, it would be Art of War, because for me,
Yeah.
Art of War would never be cut in the deck,
Mm,
at least not for now.
it
It
does
would
too
be,
much.
yeah, the deck would have to have a complete change, like a 360 or something, to
Right.
make me remove the card from the deck, because it just does so much for Katsu right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it
That
just
that
every
would
time
make
I
sense.
try it, I'm not outright playing it, because you still need to maybe set up a bit, wait for the right hand to play it, but it's just the best arsenal target you can have.
Yeah,
Usually one of the best draws you can have. It does
absolutely.
everything the deck wants.
How about the soul beads? This is kind of one of the main, you know, differentiating factor of your deck. I was wondering if this one played as big of a part as you'd hope it would.
Well, it didn't do anything great, but it wasn't bad neither.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
the worst thing is drawing two of them, because you can never ensure that the first one will hit.
That's
So
a
you
good
might
point.
be stuck with the second one. So usually I will block with it if I can. But it never really came up that a soul beat got blocked and I really needed it to hit.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think you play around it in that sense where you don't rely on it too much. It's just kind of a very annoying card for your opponent to deal with, and you'd be okay with either outcome kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes if it hits, it's like I said earlier, if you have like a blue, a descendant, and a soul beat strike, and just Kodachi, and then soul beat, if they let it hit, you draw a mask. If you draw 0, you get your bounce. And you have one float to keep going with descendant bounce fluster.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they block it, you still have the descendant in hand, which is a fine arsenal target as well.
Absolutely.
Because it serves as a starter in a combo piece as well.
Yeah.
It's
that makes sense.
it's all right. So
Yep.
if they give us another, let's say, another Gust Wave or another thing that follows the Gust Wave,
Right. That'd be
will
one of
easily
the.
take its place. Probably the first cut.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. What about underperformed? So anything that you put in, either you thought it'd be okay, but ended up being bad, or something you thought would be good and just ended up not being great, or just like was average.
Yeah, on that one, I think, well, the Mugenchi package with Lord of Wind, I think I would consider now a relic of the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't do what it's supposed to do in bringing back threats. If you put it off against an aggro deck, it can be alright, since it's coming for 1 for 5 when it combo is enabled. And with Bruise Rider Boots, you can follow that with 6 power of Lord of Winds, if you still have the 3 in the deck.
Right.
The way the bounds line work, it banishes your cards from your graveyard. So if you grab a Whelming at some point in the game, that's -1 Whelming you can grab with the Lord of Winds.
Yeah.
Revert
Yeah.
onto that route. So
Bit
it's
of anti-synergy between those two.
yeah, exactly. You may end up with the stuff you want to shuffle back banished, or you still have like the blue Whelming, which you don't care really about.
Right.
So the Mugenchi was a bit lackluster. Never came up against any Dromize. I only played 2, I think, and I just didn't need them because I just won them over basically. Because I drew Art of War in the first 3 turns. It just does that against Dromize because it's not the best. It's well for 3 or 4, but if you go over 5, it starts crumpling a bit. So yeah, but I just don't have any better blues to run than Lord of Wind.
Yeah, waiting for
Hmm.
two more of these babies, right?
I'm not even sure, honestly. One of is all right. If you see it early and you pitch it, people will have to consider that you might have more. Lexi I've already adjusted to the card running trenched against me,
Right.
Yeah.
so it's not as efficient that it would be otherwise.
Maybe
And you can
one
see in the
copy.
final.
I was gonna say, well, maybe one copy is like the perfect play because they'll know you have it and they'll expect two more copies, so they like tech against it like crazy, right?
Maybe one or two could be good.
Yeah.
I could see myself adding a second one. I'm not sure if I want to go to 3 because I played Ested for 3 weeks with 3 Warmongers, and there are also bad draws of Art of War, which
Yep.
could which are the only bad draws with Ancestral. And Ancestral is not all that bad.
It's true.
But yeah, and you can see in the finals actually that opponent didn't bring Trench. I think he has it in his list, but he had
It's Tunic Perch, right? I think he was on
Tunic
Tunic
and
Perch.
Perch. So he was not scared at all of the Warmonger because it was
Mm,
open deck. Yeah, he knew that I only have one.
that's a good point. Yeah.
And he saw me pitch it turn one.
Oh.
Unless I have a Katsu trigger and I can shuffle my deck, he's not seeing that card anytime soon. That's
Absolutely.
it. When it comes to open deck list, it can be
I did forget about that.
a little
Yeah.
worse to have only one in the deck, but
Yeah.
I can see myself upping the count to 2.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
otherwise, any good combo blue cards that they give us, maybe in bright lights, which I
Right.
doubt will. But
Yeah.
another blue could fit perfectly fine over the Lord of Winds if I ever remove the Mugenshi release, which would be my intention probably.
Yeah.
It's not needed, and it adds extra clunk in the deck, being a 1 cost.
True.
Like I said, the mistake I did in my stream match, I went maybe too aggressively in that turn, going double bounce. Because I had the Descendant Gustwave in Arsenal. I drew the Mugenshi, I think, of an Ancestral or of a random draw I had at some point in the turn. I looked at my pitch zone, I had 1 float, and I drew the Mugenshi. I'm like, perfect, I can pay the Mugenshi. So
Right.
my bounds will grab the Whelming, I will break the Breeze Rider Boots to give it go again,
Mm-hmm.
and Mugenshi. But then I forgot that I needed to pay for the Descendant Gustwave in my arsenal.
Okay.
I was short 1 resource, so I had to use the Breaking Scales to go over the block on my Mask Trigger just to draw enough pitch to play the Mugenshi.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it cost me my arsenal, my Breaking Scales that I haven't blocked with,
Right.
just
That's
to
so
get
sad.
my...
Yeah. That hurts.
Yeah. Luckily, it didn't cost me the game, but could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Mugenshi is a card I could see myself changing soon.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think that concludes the main, deck list, main deck tech. At this point, are there any shoutouts you want to give to the success of the deck? Because obviously this deck brought you very far into the finals of the Nationals 2023. But yeah, anyone like testing partners, community, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the creator of the first iteration of the deck, Nikola Kromarich, was by Chroma79 on Discord. We talked a lot going into our own nationals, and we were exchanging about deck ideas and stuff. And I had my own list. I looked at his. He has more times than I do to practice. He has way more experience than I do in Katsu since he's been doing it for forever. So I was all ears. I listened to everything he had to say, and he was following me all day long during nationals,
Oh, nice.
giving tips and stuff. And I was asking how I was doing and everything. So big shout out to this guy.
That's awesome.
And yeah, as well, I don't have a team. I don't have a. The only place I practice is on Talishar.
The almighty
That's
Talishar.
the only time I have is when I'm putting my baby to sleep. Play a couple of
Okay.
games on Talishar, and then
Yeah.
that's the practice I had.
Yeah.
But everyone in the Cloud Central Station, Frank Hong, Max Thomas, this is a great community to be around, and probably the best Discord server that is. And also two other people, Jimmy Lee, who brought me into the game, back in 2021, I think it was.
Nice.
So big shout out to him and Lee Pushard and everyone in the Tavern Brothers Discord. Are a great community to be around as well. They are doing weekly events, monthly armories, many stuff going around this Discord. I've been playing with them since forever.
Fair enough.
That's
I mean, you may or may not be in Barcelona, I guess. I know I asked you already, and you were very unsure. But now you have the invite, so possibly Barcelona.
Yeah, do have a couple stuff to.
Might be tough.
I don't
far,
have a
huh?
passport.
Okay, so you gotta
That's
renew
the main
that.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has expired for too long. I checked on the website, and it has to been delivered less than 15 years ago, and mine was
Okay.
delivered in 2007.
Oh, you just missed it.
Yep.
Uh,
So I do have to check on that. But yeah, this could be a possibility. I'm going towards. I have to
yeah.
check on that and make sure everything is possible. Then I get my passport in time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, fair enough. Well, congratulations again. All the way to the finals, Canadian Nationals, very, very difficult field. A lot of really
Yeah, a lot of
great
strong players in Canada. Yeah.
For
Yep.
sure.
So congratulations again. And with that, if all of our viewers like this content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions for Maxime, feel free to leave them in the comments. And with that, from wherever you're watching in the world, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.